hound hunters are, they're tough enough to be the bottom rung. There's nothing wrong with being the low-hanging fruit. I mean, you're at the gate. That's the real battle. Old man up north, he always said, you got to be tough to be a bear hunter.
I was like, well, if I throw a mic on, then I can help others the way that these people have all helped me.
Born in the heart of the Pennsylvania deer camp, with the help of experts, friends, and local legends, we bring you valuable knowledge and powerful stories for your hunting adventures. Welcome to the East Meets West Hunt Podcast with your host, Beau Martonik.
Can I, sit back comfortable, or do I need to sit
do
up?
However you want.
Well, I might do a little bit of both. My back's hurting from dragging your bear out.
Your back's hurting from dragging my bear out. You did do. I'd say about half the drag, and I helped out.
Oh no, that's what I told Zach. That was a tough drag, and it was downhill.
Yeah.
And that's what I was telling Zach. He was like, "Well, should just let it go." I said, "Dude, if we could let it go, it went over one high wall and got stuck on the bench, and then the benches weren't like clean benches where you could walk out them safely." And I said, then we'd have to throw it off another high wall and then fight with all the belt structure. I said, it was just not, it was a lot better just to try to control going downhill and then cross hilling safely, because the way we drag out, when we pull the bear down a little bit, let the dogs come, tie the dogs up, because it's so much easier than having 4 or 5 hounds and trying to lead them off the mountain in that steep ground.
Yeah.
It's safer for you, safer for the dogs. So that's why we do that.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely made it more difficult, but I completely understood, because those dogs are going to follow that scent.
That's right.
And you end up tossing the bear down, he rolls down over, those dogs are probably going to follow.
Yeah.
From what you were saying. And
yeah, I mean, they're just coming, they're all wound up,
Yeah.
So they're coming down the hill as fast as they can. There's nothing. I mean, most dogs ain't going to just run off a cliff, but we've seen it. It's happened to us that they're just so wound up and they're just flying, and all of a sudden they're off the wall.
Well, it's not like that country is easy to stop in. So they come flying down, and you got rocks covered with oak leaves. It's super slick.
Yeah, it's pretty slick. You saw that bear took off with me and you.
Yeah, yeah. That was definitely the hard part of that. It is funny you say that, because if you're dragging downhill, which sounds really easy, but both of us trying to control.
Yeah.
To make sure, and then you get caught up in some saplings and try and bring them back and to direct them the way that you want. And also it's so steep, you and I were each on different levels to try to, only one of us could really move good.
That's right.
To do that. And it was, it made it pretty tough, but
it's all worth it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it definitely was. Well, as we started recording here, so you probably recognize the voice if you're listening. If you're watching the video, you definitely do. But I've got Josh Ilderton back with us from the Untamed. So I'm back down in southern West Virginia. I mean, we joked about it last time about this being kind of my second home, but I think it really is kind of becoming that way.
Yeah. It's becoming that way. But the great thing is you get along with everybody down here in our whole group, my family. I mean, you when we went to my brother's to watch the football game, and it's just like you can see the interaction between like you and Brody, you and Stacy. They're used to you. You're down here a lot, so it's all good. I'm glad. It's become a good friendship over the last several years, and we've made some good memories.
Yeah, it is funny how that all works. Like thinking, it's been 4 years ago, around this time when I came down for the teach and train and everything. I think that was before.
Oh yeah, that is right.
So it's been 4 years, and think about 5 years ago, I didn't really know you other than running into you at ATA, but that was
right.
That was really it. And now it's like, we talk every week, and I'm down here 3-4 times a year.
I just need to make it to PA.
I know. I've been telling you.
I know.
I told you. I said my grandpa's been asking when you're going to come up to camp. He watches the podcast on YouTube. He's like, you got to bring Josh from West Virginia up here. He's like, I think we'll get along. I said, I think so too. Yeah, it's about time that you make the trip up and check out that country and some of the culture there.
I just want to. I mean, I would be excited to do that, but I'd be more excited to be in the atmosphere with your family. You know,
yeah,
bullshitting, sitting around camp. That you gotta, from what we've spoke about, and what and what you post and stuff. I mean, you got a special thing up there, being able to hunt with family, have a hunting camp.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not everybody's got that. I think that would be super fun, super cool.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I think you'd fit in really good with that crowd. I'll call my family and friends up there. But I wanted to do this podcast here because I came down and got to experience bear hunting with you for the first time, and it's crazy because I mean, really, I'd say probably from the beginning, but besides ground hunting. I think bear hunting was also a pretty big part of your guys' YouTube growth at the beginning, as far as like, this is different, something I've never seen, people do before, and come up and I've come down and I've deer hunted with you a bunch, I've turkey hunted with you, but I've never experienced the bear hunting part of it, and really wanted to come down and check it out. And the other part of that is the more that I see with pressure from anti-hunting groups, as well as even like middle of the road people that aren't too sure about it, hunting with dogs for bears, mountain lions, anything like that is kind of a touchy subject, as far as people aren't really sure about it. And honestly, I didn't know how I felt about it because I'd never experienced it. I've always been under the camp of supporting all hunters for what they're doing, and we need to support, even if you don't take part in that, to be able to support it. But I wanted to be able to speak on it and be able to interview you properly. I felt like getting to do a little bit of that hunting myself would make a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
To be able to
give you some of the jargon.
So yeah. How about it? We ride around the side by side. I was like, all right, Josh, I got to ask you, what are some of these terms? What does walking the dog mean?
What's rigging mean?
Rigging mean, yeah, all those things. So I guess to get started, how did you get started bear hunting with dogs?
So I got out of the Marine Corps in '99, and my mom was friends. Well, actually, my cousin was friends with some pit folks up in northern part of the state. That's where the largest houndsman population is in West Virginia. They've been able to run hounds for years up there. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, my mom had talked to the family she stayed with when she went up there for work. And so they took me hunting, killed a bear. It was not a great experience my first time going, but I enjoyed it. I had never hunted in that part of the state because, when I was growing up, I mean, it would have probably took 7 hours to get there from Logan. So you just didn't travel a lot. We didn't have the roads we have now, but didn't have like a great experience. I enjoyed the camp and the hunting, ended up harvesting a bear, loved being around the dogs. But then started hunting up there every year. I started going back, and I'd go for 4 or 5 days, and then it turned into going for a couple of weeks a year. And then, I'm thinking it was either 2009 or 2010 that they were proposing the hound season in the southern four, the bow hunting only counties. They were going to start opening up because counties surrounding the southern four had a hound season. So we had a couple of buddies of mine. We had started hunting with some guys over there but we didn't have dogs. We would just go and be helpers. And started hunting with them quite a bit in maybe 2006, maybe 7, something like that. And I rode with a guy named Junior Elshire for 4 years, and I was just his sidekick. I was his helper, and breaking brush and dragging and doing all the things that, and then just learning from him and learning from all the other guys I was around. And then we had got word that they were going to expand the season into the bow hunting only counties. And it was around 2009, 2010 that decided to get my own hounds. And Zach's brother Craig and I went in, and we traveled the daggone state one weekend picking up dogs. We were naive. We went around, and I think we bought 7 or 8 dogs in a weekend. And of course, you start learning who the dog swindlers are and everything through time, and we got swindled pretty bad. And I think that first year we caught 1 bear, and but we hunted hard, and just from that point on, going from catching 1 bear, and I think we got lucky on him. I don't really know what happened. So that was in 2009, 2010, and since then we've continuously grown, and the group got bigger, littler. I mean, that's what happens with bear hunting groups. You go through dogs, you find what you like and what you don't like, and then here we are today. I mean, I've had as many as 14 dogs, and now I hunt with 4, and Rook, my pup, will give me 5. I want to get to like 6 dogs, but that's kind of how it started and where we've been. And then, I slowed down a couple years ago when I blew my knee out. I wasn't able to run that year, and then the next year, just what heart wasn't in it, was hunting deer real hard, and then hunted some last year and had a really good time. Got back into it, and then I've hunted quite a bit this year, and I just love being around. I love the part of hunting with dogs and watching them grow up, but I like the part of it where there's really not a whole lot of stress other than keeping the dogs safe and keeping everybody in the hunting party safe. I mean, it's a low stress hunt. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where it started and where we're at now. And, it's there's been a lot of eye-opening experiences because we don't deal with some of the stuff that outside of West Virginia deals with. We've been through that, when we started the YouTube channel. And, so it's been a good experience, and I mean, just love it. That's how Brody started, my son. That's how he started hunting with me. I mean, he went to his first tree when he was 3 years old, and yeah, I mean that's where I started and where I'm at now.
Yeah, and I mean, in doing that and having those dogs, I mean that's something that's a big time commitment, and like it's not like you can just get these dogs and then all of a sudden they're treeing bears. Like you've got to train them, you've got to run them to get them in shape. Like they're not for a lazy person. If just from my experience looking at it from the outside in.
No, it's not. I mean, it's don't even look at if you're going to have a pack of hounds get into bear hunting. I mean, there's a lot of things you got to ask yourself. It's not just getting the dogs. It's can I afford to feed them? Can I afford to take care of them properly medically? Can I afford to make sure they have their shots? Can I make sure that if I'm gone, that somebody's going to come and feed and water my dogs every day while I'm gone, that I trust? There's a lot to it that people just say, well, I'm going to get into it. And it's not. Don't worry about the financial aspect of it because it's expensive to get into. But the questions you ought to ask is, if I'm going to get into it, because it's okay to get into it. If you have somebody to hunt with, you can have 1 or 2 hounds and hunt with a group. You're still handling dogs. You're still involved. But if you're going to get into it and you're going to hunt by yourself and you have 4, 6, 8 hounds, 10 hounds, whatever, you got to ask yourself if I can take care of them, you know, if I can pay the vet bills, if I can feed them, if I have the time to. And then once you do that, then you figure out, you know, and then do I have the time commitment to. I mean, these dogs are bred to hunt. They're bred to run. I mean, that's what they're bred for. Do I have time to do what they're bred for? Take them out and train and let them run. And then the financial stuff, you know, that's a whole nother ball. You know, another ball game is like, you know, I'm going to need tracking cars. You don't let the dogs loose without tracking cars. I'm going to have a tracking system. You know, I'm going to have leads. There's a lot to it. And I encourage everybody, if you want to get into it. I'm just saying, ask yourself these questions, because there's a lot of people that get into it and then they're like, they can't take care of their dogs, and then their dogs end up not getting taken care of the way dogs should be took care of. And that's some questions they need to ask themselves to make sure that they're doing what's right by the dogs.
Yeah.
Because the dogs, them dogs will be able to tell if they're getting treated right or not. If they ain't getting treated right, they're not going to do right by you. If they're getting treated right, they're going to give you everything they got. You know?
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that was one of the first things when, you know, as I've just being around them and seeing, one, how, you know, well behaved your dogs were, and also the whole group, I would say, but, you know, you and also Riley and Jake from up north that came down and met up with us, like, are all very serious about it, and it's like those guys live for it too. Like,
oh yeah,
and those dogs are their pride and joy to you know, for taking them out and running them and getting them in shape and doing that. And that, you know, that's what you're saying about this early season. As we were hunting, you know, August 31st was the opener this year. It's hot. So, and you know, even with you saying you know, been running them, you know, it's still, they can get wore out quickly. The heat takes, you know, note of them, and you're very, very adamant about making sure that, all right, it's going to be hot. We're only going to hunt till this time. Make sure the dogs are good. And I just kept hearing you say many, many times, which I really respected, was just like, hey, we just got to make sure that these dogs are taken care of. We're not overrunning them.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we're sitting here today and didn't hunt this morning.
Yeah.
I mean, it was your last day here, but I'd opted to not hunt them because they had a not such a long chase on the opening day, but it was much hotter and the humidity was high, and it was dry out. You know, the ground was dry. We ended up getting lucky and getting rain Saturday evening, Saturday afternoon. But then they had a long chase. You know, they had a gut-busting chase yesterday. And so with me with 4 dogs, my mindset is that I need a day to rest. Yeah, I would have loved to hunt today because it's an awesome day out. It's mid-70s. It was cool this morning. There's no humidity. But it's still not the right thing to do. You gotta make sure that they're good for the rest of the week, because we're getting cooler weather coming in tonight. And I wish we could have hunted again today, but you got to make sure that they're good to go. And like I said, I'm a little different because I've only got 4, you know, bear dogs that are running and treeing. If I had 8 or 10, I would take 4 or 5 out at a time, so they would get days of rest. And you don't have to worry about them being wore out. Because if you hunt in this heat and stuff, one day can bust them. You know, I lost my best male dog last summer in training season to heat stroke. And just ever since then, I've just been like super leery. Like, I didn't even run down here this summer. I was driving up north to run because it seems like you get across like the north central part of the state, and the humidity is just a whole lot different when you get in those mountains. And so I was driving up there to run because the humidity would just absolutely drain a dog. And they're not going to stop. That's the problem. Is like some dogs, they might be running, they start feeling themselves get overheated, and they'll just slow down. And that's all good. But then some dogs, like if they're on a bear, they don't care. Like they're going. And they're going to go until they explode. And so I'm just really leery of the heat, and I don't want to lose any dogs, and it's just precautions I take.
Yeah. Well, like so an example of this was opening day was super hot. I mean, I don't even think it got below 80 at night. Like it was
76 when we went out.
Yeah, at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Or 5:30, whenever we left to go out, and it was so humid, and it wasn't. You mentioned as we were driving up the mountain, you're like, there's not even dew on the grass, which helps cool those dogs down as they're running.
Absolutely.
And you just kept saying, hey, our cutoff's probably be 9:30 at the latest, because that's just we're only have a few hours of hunting because of how hot it is, and I think it would be good if we just kind of got into the story of our last few days of the hunt, because I think some of the other questions that I have will come up just naturally into that. But and the other thing is, like, one of the things, especially in this area, and I would argue there's quite a few places like this on the East Coast that I'm familiar with, where there are so many bears. And so we were going out, and I'm like, how do you really know where to go? And you were just like, well, there's kind of bears all over the place, so trying to find.
Yeah, it depends on. You just got to be on the. We start on top, wherever we can get up on top, or it's either on top or down low, and then there's not a whole lot of roads as you have experienced the last few years. There's not a lot of middle roads.
No.
You got a road in the drain, you got a road on the ridge. So we start on the ridges because in the mornings, the thermals and everything are pulling up. So when you're riding around, the dogs, it's called rigging. And that's when you put your rig dogs up on your box, and they're tied up on top, and they're above the truck, and you just ride around. And you're just riding around BSing, telling stories until the dogs tell you that they smell a bear. And you saw that morning, that they hit a scent and they'd whimper or light bark. We'd let them down. They wouldn't do nothing. And then, like the second time they rigged, it was a little better.
Mm-hmm.
Let them down. Didn't do nothing. And then, but we were traveling around the knob. I mean, it's not like a circle, big, like it's a big knob.
Yeah.
But then we got, we'd hit, and then got on towards the backside, and
they just lit up.
Yeah. When they when they rig like that and your box is shaking, you're not going to have any issue taking it out there. And that grass, where it's so dry that morning, it doesn't hold scent real good. But when it's moist and you have to do one, as your dogs are running through a heavy dew area that in rain, like you said, it keeps the dogs cool as they're running. It also holds the scent down on the ground, as long as it's not raining. If the ground's moist, it's going to hold the scent better for the dogs, the other part of it. So, and you saw, you could have a dog that and I'm just using this as an example, that rigs a 5-hour-old track when the ground's moist. And then if it's dry ground hunting like Saturday was, you might not be able to take an hour-old track out there because it just don't hold the scent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference. And when and you just got to being out there training them and being with them, you learn what dogs do. What you learn all their barks, and you can tell the difference. And they're telling you what you should be doing. You just got to. They're just giving you advice on for you to make a decision.
Yeah. Yeah, that was when the different barks were funny. I'd hear, you and Zach and Jake and everyone talking back and forth, and you're like, on the radios going back and forth, being like, I don't. I mean, they smell something. Thermals are pulling. I don't know if it is old or not. And then you'd be like, maybe let a couple out just to check, and then when I started to learn when it was hot. That's when you're like, all right, there's the one close.
Time to tailgate them.
Yeah, time to tailgate them, which is letting you always start. Seems like with letting the rig dogs off first, which the ones on top, they get down, they check, and as soon as they go into the woods,
and you can tell by their bark whether they're on the track or not, and then as soon as you hear them and they're straightened out, then you drop all the other dogs.
Yeah. And
we had decided at that point on your hunt to drop everything we've got because we had rigged around for 30 minutes or 40 minutes. So that takes you from, I think it got daylight around 6:30, 6:35 that we had started. And I think it was 7:15, 7:20 before we dropped. Well, that only gives you, my cutoff's 9:30. So it gives you 2 hours to catch the bear. So we had opted to drop everything to put as much pressure as we could, because even when Jake came around through there, his box, they blew up, all his dogs. So we knew we were getting hot. So we opted to drop everything we had to put as much pressure as we could to get the bear caught and treed. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes you'll drop and your rig dogs will go around and they'll peck around. They'll just ooh, and then they'll peck around, no. Well, we're going to sit back and let him get it straightened out, and then he might get away from you. Well, at that point, you just go tracking him, and you might have 2 dogs on the ground, and you'll track him to where he's going to cross somewhere. You can get other dogs into him, and you feed dogs once he gets it up and going. Yeah,
that was the other term. Feeding dogs were meaning when they get on it, and then we'd move in the vehicle or the side by side and get to they crossed this road right here, and they're definitely on them. Let's drop a couple more off, and they get on the trail, and then they catch up.
Yeah, and you're hoping to drop them, right as the bear crosses.
Yep.
Or your lead dogs cross, and you put them in right with your lead dogs, but it's one or the other has to cross. Mm-hmm. And that's feeding dogs into them. A lot of people call it cutting in. We just say feeding them into it, but it's cutting in. And a lot of states allow it, and then there's a lot of states that don't allow it. West Virginia, fortunately, is a state that you are allowed to cut in on the race. There's some states when you start a race, that's it.
Okay.
That's what you finish with. So there's different regulations in every state for it.
Interesting. And then once they let loose and we're going, I kind of looked at you. I said, "Now what do we do?"
Yeah. now, Beau, we cut them loose and everybody's standing around, and Beau says, "All right." He said, "What do we do now?" And I'm just kind of sitting there, leaned against the side by side. And I said, "Buddy," he said, "we just listen to a good chase, and we let them do the work." And that's what we did for the next hour and 15 minutes. They ran a good chase, and honestly, when I was going down the hill, I honestly thought, because knowing the area, I thought the bear had got off the high wall. And I was like, they're hung on top of the high wall. That's when they all piled up there. And then, but when we got out of the side by side, I was like, they're tree barking. they're treed. It took me a minute to figure it out, but then I was like, oh no, they're tree barking. So that I said they got it. The bear didn't get off the high wall.
Yeah,
because they're smart. They know exactly where to get off, where the dogs can't get off, and go up them, where the dogs can't go up them. And but at that point, it was a good chase, and we knew we had it caught. And at that point, you just got to gather all your stuff up and get in there as quick as possible. Because one, it was getting hot. You could tell that by us.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I were drenched.
we were soaked.
And it's getting hot. There's no water up there on the hill where they were at. And you want to get in there, look at it, get it took care of, and get out of there. Because I feel like when dogs are treeing, I know they're not running. They're not running. Some dogs bark on a track, some dogs don't. But I feel like when dogs are at the tree, it's harder on them energy-wise, like stamina-wise. I feel like it's harder, especially if you've got dogs that tree hard. I think it's harder on them treeing than it is running. I think that they can get completely wound up because they're looking at the bear, and if it moves, then they're all, as soon as the bear moves, you saw it at the tree the other day, it gets them wound up, and I think it's harder on them at a tree than it is running.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and then so we got down as close as we could get, but it wasn't that close at the same time. I mean,
that happens a lot.
Yeah. So it's like, from my experience, the dogs are doing most of the work, but there's also a point where, you guys, the houndsmen, and then the hunters, we've got to do some work too, and we've got to get there quickly to get, again, just exactly what you said about the dogs, and try to get there and make a decision whether you're going to let the bear go. If it's not the size of the bear that you're looking for, you can make that decision with hound hunting, which is different than any other type of hunting, because you have a chance to actually look at the bear, identify it, decide whether you want to take it or not, and have that decision. But we got out, and we're like, the only spot we could get out, we were stuck by a belt line.
Yep.
And we're like, how are we going to do that? Like, we're going to have to climb up over. And so we, handed gear up and climbed our bodies up over that, and had to climb basically a vertical face to get up there. And you and I were really dumping some sweat at that point.
And then, you got Cole and them. It's not easy to sit there and pack cameras and film in that terrain, and everything's loose. It's steeper than a goat's face. When we got across the high wall, I knew they were treeing, but obviously don't know what we have. But then we were probably 100 yards, and I kept on looking up, and I finally spotted the bear, and I was like, "Hey, got it treed, but we don't, who knows?" And that's the point you made is like, when you get into a treed bear, like, you're not going to shoot a deer and go up to it and say, "Okay, man, I don't want this deer. I'll let him go." You're living with it.
Yep.
When you hunt with dogs and you catch something, you can go up and judge them. You can, you're taking a best guesstimate at their weight. You can see if it's a boar or a sow, and then make a decision on whether you're going to take it or not. And that's what, when we got in there, that's what we did. We saw that it was a good bear, and we had to wait for the other part of it is, we waited for Jake and Riley to get down off the mountain and get to the tree before we did anything. And that's just something that any bear hunting group that you're hunting with is going to, if anybody wants to come to the tree, they're going to wait for them to get to the tree and watch their dogs, or if their dogs didn't make it, get in and see the bear. You're going to wait for everybody to get into the tree before you make a decision. I mean, it only took them 10 or 15 minutes to get in there. If it would have been like 10 o'clock, we would have run that bear for 2.5 hours, and it had been 10 o'clock and it was already 90 degrees. We probably would have jetted right in there, tied the dogs up, made the decision, and got out of there. Whoever was in there, and whoever wasn't. You know, you always got to. That's why I was tying the dogs up as they were coming in.
Yep.
I was tying as many up that I felt comfortable keeping a couple loose to keep pressure on the tree so the bear wouldn't come out before they got there.
Yep.
Because we definitely didn't want to have to turn loose again.
No.
At that point. So, but that's just something that you do with every tree and every bear you catch. You give everybody the opportunity that wants to come, let them come.
Yeah. No, and just getting to see those dogs were so happy. You know, we came up and they're like, look what we did. Yeah. You know, like they
I mean, as soon as they see you, you'll have a couple run off to you.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, hey, how about me? Give me an attaboy.
Yeah.
And then they run back up to the tree, and then they stay on the tree. But it's like they run down to you and be like, hey, we done our thing. Yeah, you sure did. Good job. Now get back up there and keep him there. You know? But that's how they are. I mean, they're fun to watch. And if you ever have the opportunity and the pleasure of raising one from a pup and watch it go through the phases, it's pretty exciting when they get to their first tree and they start treeing or they run and bite one on the butt on the ground, or it's pretty exciting to watch young dogs come up.
Yeah, and getting to see Rook, which is your puppy, who you didn't, too young to let out on the track, but you had him in the box riding around with the big dogs.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, he thought he was a big dog.
Oh, yeah. He's feeling it, but he's 16 weeks old. No, he's not 16 weeks old. Lord, I'm giving him some age. He's 14 weeks old. He's doing good at, it's always funny to watch those older dogs when you introduce a younger dog to them, and they'll sit around and sniff on each other. And, he's still got that playful, he's a pup. He's wanting to play and chew on their ears, and, he's having fun with our house dog Bear. They play out here all the time, and he aggravates the piss out of him, and that's what he does with those hounds. They put him in check a couple times, So, but no, I think he's going to do good. He damn sure thought he was a big dog the second day of, not jumping ahead. But
yeah,
but that's what you have to do to just get them used to it. Is just take them out, let them ride in the box, let them out on the ground. When we're shitting the dogs out in the mornings, and let them out if we're going to cut loose, which I did. The second day, and he don't know what he's barking at.
Yeah,
but he just knows he's barking. I mean, I'd love to think that he knew what he's barking at this age, but he doesn't. But it was fun to watch him when the bear crossed the road the second day, and we put him out, and he went over to the brush, and he was kind of like, he acting like he was rigging when all the other dogs was rigging.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool. So yeah, and that's what it's all about, man. I mean, dogs are amazing. They'll surprise you when you least expect it on what they can do, and the stuff that them catching bears and putting the pressure on them, and it's they're fun to watch and fun to listen to.
Oh yeah, they are. And yeah, hearing him back there, and then there'll be times when none of the other dogs are barking, he starts going off.
Oh yeah,
you're like, oh, he's excited,
Yeah.
But that was pretty cool to watch that. But once we were at the tree and you gave me the go ahead to shoot the bear and everything. I will say, when I don't think I've ever had this experience where I'm looking eye to eye at the animal that I'm about to shoot. You're looking right up. You're looking at that bear. And that was a weird...
And you were pretty much directly across from him from your...
Yeah, because I went up on
the steepness of the ground.
Yep.
you were pretty much straight across from him.
Yeah. And that was definitely a kind of a weird feeling of like, okay, this is, at this point, you better be okay with what you're doing, because you're looking right at this animal when you're going to be able to take this shot and do that, and shot, and thankfully it was a good ethical kill, and he fell down and was dead in seconds to be able to get to him, and then you let all the dogs check it out. Excuse me, go check them out first, and this is what you guys did, and they're, as I said in the post when I shared the photos and stuff of the bear, it was like, first and foremost, those hounds, they're the ones that earned it. You guys are the houndsmen, and I was just a trigger puller at that point. But
there are trigger pullers, but now you put the work in. There's always it takes all kinds to make it work.
Yeah,
for sure.
I guess the other point of it is it's more of it's a group effort, versus sometimes you're deer hunting, you're doing something. It's more of a singular. You're directly responsible for every move that you make, for everything that results in you getting this deer. Whereas this is a group effort.
Absolutely. Like I said, it takes a group effort. I mean, there's a lot of times that I'm hunting by myself with just my dogs, and but it's much more fun when you're able to take people out and let them experience it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I love going out either way, but a huge part of what I do like about hound hunting is you get to take other people that, I don't expect that Beau Martonik's going to go out and buy a pack of hounds, but you get to experience it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the greatest things about it, is sharing it with other people, and then sharing it with other people that might. I've took a couple of my neighbors that had not been indifferent to it, but just didn't know. And I've took them, and one says he won't go back. He didn't enjoy it. And two said, if you have an empty seat, let us know anytime. But the one that said he wouldn't go back, it didn't. What is not like hound hunting shouldn't be legal.
Yeah.
He's like, I see a place for it. I see the dogs working. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yep.
That's fine. But just letting people experience it is what I really love about it. Being able to take people.
Yeah, and not to, and like you said, it's not, I think even the purpose, with us talking about this, other than sharing the hunting story, is not to be like, let's make everybody, bear hunters and everybody have hounds and do that. Like, that's not the point of it. It's more so to just understand what it is. And at least for me, this is the way I look at it, is like, not everybody's going to do it. He said the time commitment, the financial side of it, all those different things that come to it. It's not for everybody. It's a big commitment, but to be able to understand it, and also then, when things do happen, us as sportsmen and women when you see things come up in legislative, especially in the West that we're seeing now in Colorado and Washington and up in Canada and these places, that understanding that when things are driven by ballot box biology versus scientific or what the biologists are saying as far as what needs to be done, what are effective ways to be able to manage the population. I cannot imagine trying to keep this bear population in check, without doing it this way. And
hound hunting is the best option for that. You're gonna catch and harvest more bears with hounds than you are any other way of bear hunting. I mean, even the states you're allowed to bait in are not going to be as successful as hound hunters are with numbers. Mm-hmm. So you got to have them.
Yeah.
Or you're popular. I mean, you can see it in California. They've not allowed hound hunting for years, and I mean their mountain lion population is exorbitant. I mean the government's killing more mountain lions than what the hunters did when the season was when they had hound season. I mean, so what's the reason to shut it down when the government's killing more mountain lions than your hunters were before? It makes no sense.
And so you look at it, and this is what I think a lot of those people don't understand. I don't believe that everybody doesn't want to understand. I don't mean to throw everybody in one group, because I said there are mixtures of groups and how they feel about it or how they think they feel about it. But, you look at the strict, anti-hunting, really never going to change their mind type of people. They're not, I don't even know if they want to understand it, but when you look at, okay, so bears, for example, or mountain lions or any of those predators, they obviously need to be managed. And it's like, okay, yes, they need to be managed, but why? It's like, well, they're killing all of the other prey species of animals, all the deer, everything else that's underneath them in that food chain. They're doing it. And it's like, that's part of nature, and that's totally fine that they do that. But once that starts to get out of check, now you reduce that population. And it's like, okay, so now what is this thriving bear population going to feed on? Well, then they don't have enough to feed on, and they're getting sick, they're getting diseases, and they're end up dying of terrible ways that way too. There's when you look at it from, that perspective too, it's just like that is killing more than the hunters are with their tag allotment. And also, and then like you said, then when they become a nuisance and they become a problem, then you're having to have people shooting them because they're killing, ranchers' cattle or doing whatever that they're doing, and it's just, I guess the long and short of it is that they need to be managed like anything else, and this is a really great tool to be able to do so.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a great way, like I said before, to introduce kids to the outdoors. I would say that, I don't know the number, I'm just throwing a number out there, but I would say that 98% of kids like dogs.
Yeah.
And when you take kids and dogs in the outdoors, kids are going to be interested in going. Brody has just turned 16. He started going when he was 3. Does he get to go as much now in his teenage years as he did when he was younger? No, he doesn't, because he's got sports obligations in school, and he's a teenager. And it's not that big of a deal. But when he started, he went because of the dogs. I mean, and I've said this many times, but Brody's probably seen, I don't know how many now. I'm just going to say a number of 150, 175 bears in a tree. And our group was always like, Brody, it's your turn, Every tree we went to, we're like, Brody, it's your bear if you want it. And he'd sit and think about it. He's like, I don't want to shoot it. And to this day, he's still yet to kill bear. He's been going for the dogs. Every time he goes out with us, he's just going just to, 1, spend time with us, and 2, go hunt the dogs and listen to the chase. But it's a great way for kids just to get introduced, because you really don't have to worry about noise. Other than going in if a bear's in a tree or a bear's bait up or whatnot, you want to kind of be quiet going in until you see the situation, and if the bear's comfortable, then you move on in, and it's no big deal. So 1, they don't have to worry about being quiet. 2, you don't have to worry about dressing them all up in camouflage and stuff. They don't have to worry about no scent or anything. They can be out there eating candy and chips and drinking pop and doing everything that, the moms and dads don't let them do when in normality, you know what I mean? So they're just out there, and they can hoop and holler and do whatever, and so there's not a big emphasis on being so tactical about the hunt. And I think that if you get kids involved that way, they tend to want to move on to other avenues of hunting once they start enjoying the outdoors. I think it opens other roads up to start turkey hunting or deer hunting or whatever hunting. It doesn't matter. I'm using deer and turkey because you got deer, turkey, bear, and hogs here in West Virginia. So I think that once you get them involved and they're liking the outdoors, that, you know, it maybe they will, maybe they won't, but maybe they'll go down other roads to hunt other things. And that's where our hunter population comes from in 15, 20 years. They're going to be the ones that are fighting the battles. So I think it's number one for me. It's a absolute great way to get kids involved and get them in the outdoors. That's Zach interrupting.
Like you did on ours.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what he wants, but so that's of utmost importance to me, was spending time with Brody and him with me. But it's just not kids. I mean, it's things that husband and wife do, boyfriend and girlfriend do. Hound hunting. I mean, there's guys I've hunted with, their whole families come. It's great to see. My wife Stacy, she just doesn't hunt. She doesn't like that part of it, and it's no big deal. But it is a great family hunt. The camaraderie of a bear hunting a group or any type of hound group, it's a very social hunt. And that's another aspect that I love about it, is being able to talk and tell stories while you're hunting. Yeah, it gets serious, but everybody knows when it gets serious. And then if you're not in that mode, then, you know, you're just riding around, let the dogs hunt, BSing, trying to find a bear and having fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I like and I'm sure this has to do with, you know, you having a group of guys that you've spent a lot of time with and doing that. But what I noticed right from the beginning is, like, the houndsmen they're the leaders of the group. They're the ones that are, you know, essentially, I mean, it's everyone's responsibility to be safe, but you guys are responsible for keeping everybody safe and being able to really just direct as you're going. And everyone, it was almost like an unspoken thing. You didn't step up and be like, all right, guys, I'm the leader here. But it's like, okay, you're in control. You know your dogs. You're responsible for their safety, for the hunter's safety, going through and doing that. And it worked out really well. And I could see where, you know, people didn't have that sort of dynamic. Things could get a little bit weird. It's almost like when we do like deer drives and you're going through to do that safely and make sure you're doing it right. You know, you kind of have, you know, one or two people that are kind of the leaders of it, and, you know, everyone has their opinions and throws them in and they're welcome. But at the end of the day, it comes down to a few people that are running this, that are helping control things and keep them safe.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of fall into that role while we're hunting and down here, but when I go up north, I just fall into kind of a follower role.
Yeah,
because those guys, they run their own show.
Yep.
And I'm just there to support them and listen to them, and if they ask an opinion, I'll give it. If not, then I'll listen to them and do whatever they need me to do. And that's just kind of how it goes. I mean, there'd be a lot of headbutting.
Yeah.
If everybody, and you wouldn't get nothing done, and dogs would get hurt, and if you didn't have people that were just, and it's not like you said, it's not like somebody says, hey, I'm the leader, and we're going to go with this. I mean, it's always kind of a natural placement.
Yep.
So, but it works out. And you have to have that control. It's just like you walking up the mountain. People don't think about it. You know, hunters that have never experienced, when you walk to the tree, you walked with an unloaded gun.
Yeah.
There's no reason to have a loaded gun at all. But I asked you about it.
Yep.
Because walking in, steep terrain, we're not in any danger. We're not shooting anything going in. So, I'm always asking people, is your gun loaded? Is your gun unloaded? Unload it. Now you can go ahead and load it, because that's just taking an element out of the equation of something to screw up, because accidents do happen. So we don't, so going into the tree, I'm always like, hey, gun's unloaded. We're not, if the bear comes out and he's coming right at us, we're not shooting, because we don't know what anything's going on. So we don't load the gun until we get ready to shoot at the tree, because it's a controlled environment.
Yeah. You
know what I mean? You're not in, the shooter is not in any rush. Most of the time, the bear's sitting still once we decide whether we're going to shoot it or not. So that's just like one part of it. And it's just through experience that you're always checking these things when you're hound hunting. And it might seem, not pestering, but repetitious. But when you have people that have not hound hunted, you repeat everything so that you minimize any type of screw-ups. And there's going to be screw-ups.
Yeah.
But you try to minimize it to keep everybody safe.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. But
that's just an example of having a leader or a couple leaders in a group, because they've experienced it. They've seen stuff and don't want it to happen again.
Yep. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And so I want to ask you, what are some other things that are like either misconceptions or things that you would consider a misconception, or things that are looked at from a negative from a hound hunting standpoint? And just kind of your response to them.
Well, I mean, negative. Man, there's a lot of negative stuff said, Beau. With hound hunting, it's at the bottom of the rung of outdoorsmen. Whether you're hound hunting, you're hunting whitetails, you got deer dogs in the south, or you're bear hunting, or you're cat hunting. All those regions, they all get blackballed. But they're getting blackballed because the old adage of one bad apple or one rotten apple can, kill the whole bunch. I mean, that goes with hound hunting too. Most hound hunters are ethical, legal hunters. But then you're going to have the rogue hunters out there that ain't doing the right thing. But you got whitetail hunters, rabbit hunters, elk hunters, sheep, whatever. That ain't there's one or two of them ain't doing the right thing. That could blackball the rest of them.
Yep.
And I think that
and with the numbers being so small, people that are doing it, like you said, the bottom of the rung, so there's less people that are doing it. So, one or two act out of that, it makes it look a lot worse. And there's also less to stand up for it or be able to correct it in a way.
Yeah, I mean, blackballing all hound hunters as rogues and, they do whatever they want is not a correct assumption. Because most hound hunters want to do the right thing. They're out there for their dogs. They're out there for the experience. They're not out there with this kill mindset. They want to do the right thing, and I think that's a big negative you always hear. Other big negatives is houndsmen are lazy. Letting dogs do the work. And I would argue that any individual that comments that, or if that's their opinion, holler at me, shoot us a message on Facebook or Instagram, and we'll set up and maybe you can come join us at some point and see how lazy we are. Because hound hunters ain't lazy. And it's not even hunting. They're not lazy. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's pouring the rain or if it's snowing or if it's 0 degrees or it's 80 degrees and they've worked all day. They've still got to come home. They've still got to go out there and take care of their dogs every evening. Not even talking about hunting, but it takes time that they're committed to outside of hunting to take care of their hounds. So they're not lazy. I mean, they're doing everything in their life and then taking care of their dogs. So houndsmen ain't lazy. Now, I'm sure there's some lazy houndsmen out there, but houndsmen ain't lazy. They're the farthest.
Actual houndsmen.
Yeah, they're the furthest thing from laziness.
Well,
we let the dogs work because that's what they're bred to do. That's another misconception is like, yeah, these dogs can be pets and they can be house dogs, but that's not what they're bred for. You know, they're bred big game catchers. That's what they're bred for. I mean, that's what they're born to be. And it's up to us as houndsmen to get them to that point.
Well, and like I don't know if this is a great comparison, but when you look at, you know, when you hear people that are like, oh, you know, I'm a big public land hunter, so I work harder than the next person. And you look at someone that has a bunch of acreage, that they have beautiful manicured food plots and they have all this stuff. And it's like, okay. And they, you know, they're riding their side by side right up to their tree or their box blind or whatever. And you look at it, it's like, okay, maybe in the act of the actual hunt, they aren't physically working harder from a hiking standpoint or hanging their sets or doing whatever, but all that work leading up to it is still a heck of a lot of work. So it's not a, you know, saying, oh, they're lazy by doing this. Like, okay, or I've used this example before. You know, you look at someone like Lee Lakosky, and everyone always kind of looks at him, at this person like, oh man, it'd be nice to have his stuff. It's like, you see the work that went in for him to get the money to be able to do that over the years, to be able to buy property, buy the equipment, put in the time to do all that stuff. That's all a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes. And even from the hound hunting perspective, even though, you know, houndsmen and the hunters are still having to work when, like you said, getting to that tree wasn't super simple, but the dogs are doing, you know, the majority of the actual, you know, quote unquote work at that time of doing it. But to get to that point is a whole another thing. That's just for me looking from the outside in of how that looks.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of different opinions you could show of not being lazy. You could argue it over the stuff you got to do before you're able to catch bears.
Yeah.
But they're houndsmen definitely aren't lazy. And then, you know, you always hear that, you know, a big argument down here in the southern part of the state is everybody complains about the bear population. Our DNR and biologists and the legislature, they do everything possible to control the numbers, set the seasons. I think they do a good job with the seasons. No matter what anybody says, you know, the only thing that I see that they could do, and we could talk about it later, is that, and they're not going to do it, but I think real control of the bear population is a spring hound season, whether it's a week long after turkey season or whatnot. But I think a spring hound season controls numbers. Mm-hmm. But you know, down here you hear everybody. I mean, they flood Facebook and Instagram with how many? I don't have any bears. You know, I got the bears. They're tearing my cameras up. You know, DNR needs to do something. Well, they're all leases. It's all private land. And then you reach out and say, hey, we can come in and run some of those bears. You all can shoot them. We'll run them, catch them for y'all, help control your populations on your leases. It's crickets. They ghost you. Because the misconception is they want to get on there and bitch and moan and complain and gripe, but then they really don't want to do anything to help themselves or help conservation in the management of bears.
Mm-hmm.
Because the misconception is that the hounds are going to run all their deer off. And I'm not saying that hounds won't run a deer. They will. They will if the houndsman allows them to. But like my dogs will not run a deer. They're all broke. So, I mean, I've had, when my hounds lived out here, they lived right out there at the deer target. I had dog boxes everywhere. I'd have deer in the yard. They wouldn't make a peep. Where I'm keeping them now during season down there at the trailer, there's deer that walk through there all day long. Dogs don't say a peep. Now, if they get a big rutting buck crosses the road in front of them and we drive through it, yeah, they're probably going to bark because of the scent.
Mm-hmm.
They're gamey. But they're not going to run your big deer off. They're not going to, you're not going to go into a place and hunt bears and that buck's going to leave you and go to the next county and set up home over there. It's not going to happen. The people that are bitching and moaning are the exact same ones that don't want to do anything about it. They want to be heard. They want to complain, but then they don't want to come up. They don't want to come up with a solution.
Yep.
There's a lot of that on social media, and then even in just talking to people, they're like, "Oh, it's all got the bears." Well, I mean, we could come up here and run a few for y'all. You all can shoot them. We don't even want to shoot them. Oh no, can't have hounds on our property. You know they're going to run the deer off. Zach Markham,
Yep.
who hunts with us and with the Untamed, killed one of his biggest bucks he's ever killed because he was hound hunting that day.
We actually just told that story on the
did
podcast.
He tell that?
Yeah, he told that.
They bumped the deer out of his bed when he was going to the dogs.
Yep.
And he saw the deer. The dogs didn't turn and run the deer.
Nope.
But he saw it. He kept on hunting, and then he turned into deer mode and went in and killed that buck.
A giant.
Oh, yeah, a monster. In the same area that those dogs kind of bumped him.
Yep.
He went back in and killed it. So that the misconception of hounds running your deer off is totally false. Yeah, hounds could be running a bear and a deer be in a 50 or 100 yard path of that chase. Yeah, he's probably going to jump up out of his bed and say, "Hey, what the hell's going on down there? Let me just mosey over here on the other side of the point to get away from this." And that's what he's going to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's not leaving the house. He's going to stay in the house. He's just going to go to another part of the bed.
Yeah, does every time coyotes come through an area, do the deer just leave the county? No.
Yeah. So that's a huge misconception of other hunters that say that hounds affect. And like with this early season that we have, and I'm just using our early season, not a general misconception, is like this early season is a month before our archery season comes in. So even if they happen to run a buck, a stray dog, not a stray dog, but a dog decides to run a deer, that deer's coming back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not leaving here. He's coming back within a month when season opens.
Yeah.
You know, so that always burns me up. And And it's not that people, they're not ignorant. It's just that they don't know. And then if you tell them, they don't listen. But then they'll continuously gripe about the bear population in southern West Virginia or anywhere else. I mean, I've heard it other places than just here. You know, so that's a huge, you know, falsehood for me. You know, you could use Pennsylvania. Your all's bear population is huge, and people, they gripe and moan about the population up there, but it doesn't affect you all. The only thing that affects is, you know, somebody like me, I've told you this several times, it's like, I would love to see Pennsylvania open the hound season if I'd be the first one at the counter purchasing my non-resident bear tag to be able to run up there, just because there's so much wilderness and, you know, there's so much land.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know of any like major falsehoods about hound that really get to me. The other one is just like people not caring about hound hunting. And there's hunting that I don't care about, but I'm not going to sit there and browbeat somebody because of the way they do something, or they're hunting some animal that I don't want to hunt personally. Being at the bottom rung of the ladder, if that rung of the ladder rots off, I will let all you all know that they're going to the next rung. These non-interest groups and anti-hunting groups, if there's no support for all outdoorsmen, no matter what they're doing, as long as they're doing it legally, at some point the bottom rung of that ladder is going to rot away. And then all these other groups and legislatures that they're going to go to the next rung. Now, I don't know what the next rung of the ladder is. It could be elk hunting. They're going to come after somebody if hound hunting ain't here. Clay Newcomb is, you know, I didn't see it when we first started putting videos out, because we were in our little bubble in West Virginia, and we don't deal with a lot of stuff that other states deal with. But, you know, Clay's hashtag guard the gate is like, it just rings 100% true, because houndsmen are at that he always talks about them being the low hanging fruit. And once it's gone, and they take all the fruit off the, you know, the low hanging limbs, they're just going to keep on going up the tree and taking the bigger, fresher fruit. It just doesn't ever stop. And then, I mean, he's always just hashtag guard the gate. And it took me a couple years to realize what the rest of the country was going through. But it's facts. I mean, the hound hunters are guarding the gate for all other outdoorsmen. And why other outdoorsmen, whether they hound hunt or not, why they don't support hound hunting is beyond me.
Well, and you know, and we had talked about this before, and you were talking about even your conversations with Clay of like, as far as with you being in your bubble at first with West Virginia, not understanding the impacts that it could have on the outside, even with stuff with sharing, say with YouTube and everything else. And, you know, and I, you know, even heard with you talking with some of the interns that were editing some of the videos, like, hey, you know, make sure, show this is quickly. Cause you know, I mean, anytime you're killing an animal, it's not, how do I want to put this? It's not a clean thing. It's hard to make that, you know, nice to view from an outsider's perspective, but it's like, okay, let's make sure we show this in the best tasteful manner possible to be able to do so. And, you know, even for me, I've learned so much in the last 5-6 years of doing the podcast and starting to do video and social media of like, it's not to, you know, make everybody happy or act like you're putting your guard down, but it's like, cause I actually saw an old Facebook post I had from like, I don't know, I think it was like 14 years ago where it was real bad, you know, but just about, you know, if you don't like hunting, get fucked, basically, you know, and it's like,
follow me.
Yeah. And it's like, all right, that's not doing us any service when we have when we are the minority of the country, and unfortunately, you know, voting on things and the ballot box idea of things is intertwining more so than just what the biologists are saying as far as how animal populations need to be managed. And we need to put our best foot forward and what we're showing, and understanding where we're showing that, who are the type of people that can view it, and try and do our best. But that's by no means saying, you know, bend over and just be like, oh, we shouldn't do that. But I think showing it in a tasteful manner and trying to put some explanation behind it, because it is something that's a little bit harder to understand from the outside than.
Yeah, and it definitely, you don't have to bend over and just take it. But you don't want to, you know, my whole opinion, obviously, my views have broadened because seeing, one, just to be honest, being in West Virginia and we were putting videos out and stuff, I never imagined that people were going to watch a bunch of hillbillies doing what we do. So we put out whatever. But then as the snowball effect happened with our hound hunting, there was people all over the country that were hound hunters that were watching us. Well, I never had hunted outside of West Virginia other than hound hunting in Colorado to that point when we started videoing. So I've never had to deal with worrying about our effect on others. And that was a big thing that took a couple years to realize, because my whole opinion, even because we were getting phone calls, people starting to reach out to us saying, hey, we'd really appreciate if you tone some of your videos back. And this is what is working for us. And they didn't like force it on, but they were strongly opinionated on we needed to change our video style to this. And my opinion is that's an issue. It's like, yeah, let's put some videos out of it, but let's hide in the hole, you know, and let it pass. You know, let's stay in our hole so nobody messes with us. And I don't think that that's how you fight battles, is hiding. I believe in leading from the front. And so we found a happy medium that we could get our point across, and I think that we have. Garnered a lot of positive stuff for the hound hunting community across the country. And I see that with other personalities and influencers hound hunting and putting it out when they never would have before us. I mean, there was hound hunting content before us, but just nobody put the amount and the quality out. And now I think it's more comfortable for people to put it out. But you don't have to hide in your hole doing what you do, but you don't want to be out here just guns blazing. There's a happy medium that fits for everybody, and you can still get your points across and get your hunt across and your experience across. Yep. And that's what we figured out after a couple of years, and it worked, because at first there was some tough conversations of like, we ain't changing. You know, I'm not here to hide in the hole. And that was kind of that bubble that I was, you know, we were living in West Virginia. But figuring out that we have an effect on a bigger spectrum than just West Virginia. You know, we're not going to hide in the hole, but we're also not going to hurt everybody else.
Yeah. And
that's the happy medium you come to, that, hey, we want to have a positive shine on on what we're doing. We don't want people thinking that we're a bunch of rogues and trying to hurt the outdoor industry, or we want to help, but we do want to let people see what we do and how hound hunting is a positive way to hunt. I mean, it's the most ethical way to hunt, most ethical way to harvest an animal. I mean, your bear was dead in probably less than 1 second.
Yeah.
Just didn't know it. When you're got an animal in a tree and you can make an easy shot and it's a head shot, it's done. It's over with. And that's after deciding if we're going to harvest it or if we're going to catch and release it. I don't know any other type of hunting that you can do that and have an actual judge. Yeah, you can sit out there and glass an animal and go, yeah, I want to take, but you're not up close and personal.
Yeah.
And figuring it out.
Yeah, and when that was the easiest shot that I could ever have made. I had a time to find a perfect rest on the tree, lean there. There was no moving. That reticle was as solid as it could be, and as solid as it could be on there. And it was like there was no question that when that trigger was pulled, that was going to be the end result.
That's right. So I mean, I've been woke up to a lot of stuff since video and putting them out there and meeting people, but it's been great because I've been taught a lot, and I hope that I have positively influenced some other individuals and taught some people some stuff. That's the key to it all, and the key to keeping it going. So that all these antis and non-interest groups, they don't get to the second rung, that they stay down there. And hound hunters are, they're tough enough to be the bottom rung. There's nothing wrong with being the low hanging fruit. I mean, because you are. I mean, you're at the gate. That's the real battle.
You're the security.
Yeah.
Guards.
So there's nothing wrong with it, but that's why old man up north, he always said you got to be tough to be a bear hunter. And if you're the low man, I mean, houndsmen they are tough, and they can take that heat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and no, I agree, and I think even seeing or just hearing you talking about your own self evolving and learning as you're going through it, and what makes sense as far as putting it out there, but also not shying away from the fact that you're bear hunting with hounds. I think that's super important. Of finding that happy medium that's in there, but also not shying away from things or hiding from the fact that this is what you're doing and you strongly believe in it, and that's why that it would just be a disservice to not be able to share that.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm a first generation hound hunter. Nobody in my family's hound hunting, but there's some families that's been hound hunting for generations. Like it'd be a disservice for some of these to take away that heritage and that tradition from these people. I mean, I would be pissed off if it happened to me. And I'm just the first generation, and hopefully Brody continues hunting and hound hunting as he gets older and he has more time. But like some of these families, I can't imagine some of these families that have been doing it for generations, and then all of a sudden they can't do it anymore. And it's like, it's actually tradition, it's heritage. I mean, it's what their families have always done. I mean, I'd hate to be in that spot.
Yeah. Oh no, 100%. Like I said, I had a great time being able to experience it and come down here. I always have fun hunting with you guys to begin with, but to see that's such a big part of how you guys hunt and hunt bears and be able to be a part of that was pretty awesome. Like,
I mean, that's what I told you when we talked about a month ago, and I said, Beau, you're coming down to scout. I said, you got your license already because you came down to turkey hunting. You're going to deer hunt. Man, you need to come bear hunt with us and just try it, you know, because you've bear hunted. You've harvested bear before.
Yeah.
But you've never hound hunted. And it wasn't a bad experience, was it?
No, it was not. It was awesome. I got a big bear. Right now in the truck, I got a cooler full of meat and heading back to Pennsylvania, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's all about. I mean, we got a few more days of it. Season goes the early season goes out, and I think it goes out next Sunday. And then you'll be flying out west, and I'll start concentrating on deer, and then bear season comes back in December. So.
Yeah, and then I'll be coming back down. Who knows how many times this fall? At least November. But you know, now I went out and put some cameras out and scouting a new area, and I learned that there wasn't any cell service there, so I don't have any cell cams that would help as far as being like knowing that okay, these spots I picked in a completely brand new area are good or they're not. So I'm probably gonna come down in October to check those cameras and do a couple days of hunting and see. But
I will get that tenant agreement sent out to you, lease agreement, rental.
Oh, for your place, yeah.
Keep on coming and staying.
Oh yeah. We'll have to talk about the terms there. Yeah,
dude, you know that you're always welcome. From I knew we hit it off good when you came down for the teaching train, and then came back down that fall. I knew that we would always have fun hunting and experiencing stuff together. So welcome anytime. I like I told you the other day, I mean, your dad and any family member, because y'all are tight-knit, and I've talked to all of them on the phone.
Yeah.
They're more than welcome anytime also.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's funny for anyone that's listening here. So I stay with Josh either at the trailer with the interns as well as Cole, or stay in your office that you've got set up like a little apartment there. And I was like, Josh, I can stay in a tent, and I've done it before. And you're like, why would you stay in a tent when I'm offering you a warm place to sleep, a hot shower? And I was like, okay, I can't argue that.
And I'll give Beau credit that he said, I'm gonna stay in my tent. And Beau went up on the mountain and set up camp, and that's great. But Beau had one of the worst camping experiences. His tent about got blowed down. It wasn't good because you went and camped during a half tornado.
I didn't know that there was going to be 50-mile-per-hour winds at night in my beautiful spot. And I know this. I would not do this out west, but I was thinking, West Virginia, this ain't as wild as the weather is getting the mountains out there. So I'm going to put my tent on the top of the mountain, wide open, in this beautiful scenic.
He had the best view. If you've ever kept up with us on Instagram or Facebook, you've seen this picture, this view before. He had the best view looking out of his tent down the valley. Beautiful. And then the wind hits.
Yep, I had my stovepipe pulling out of my stove. I had all the guy lines. They snapped themselves loose because the wind was blowing so hard on that tent. And I learned a valuable lesson. It's not easy to stake down in coal. No. Rock doesn't tend to be able to hammer stakes into. No. And then when you tie rocks, up there on top, you better have boulders with your guy lines tied to them. So, that's when I think it got through Beau's head to take Josh up on his offer to stay at the trailer or the office with all the amenities. There's no reason not to have amenities when they're available. That's all. That's all. There's nothing wrong with camping.
and spike camping, but like if you have the amenities, take advantage of the amenities. That's just always my thought.
That's a good tip for anybody.
And most of the time, I get to stay with Beau, so we get to stay up and podcast or stay up and have a drink and just BS and talk about the world and what's going on, and so it's always a good time.
We fix all the problems in the world. Mm-hmm. We figure out how to kill all the deer. We figure a lot of things out.
That's exactly right.
Especially a couple bourbons in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it always expands the mind and your thoughts.
Well, Josh, thank you so much again for this hunt, this experience, and everything else. For anyone that's listening, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Untamed Hunt. The Untamed is a different channel.
It's The Untamed on YouTube.
Oh, it's The Untamed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our website's The Untamed Hunt.
Untamed. Okay.
Yeah. And then follow us on Instagram, Facebook. Leave Beau a comment. If you got any questions about hound hunting, leave Beau a comment on his podcast, or you can reach directly out to us. I mean, I'd love to answer anybody's questions if they have anything about hound hunting or bear hunting. And I always enjoy you coming down and hunting. You're always welcome. I hope that it was a good experience for you. And after experiencing it, I hope that you'll be one of those soldiers that but with your view on it's a positive impact on
guarding the gate
of others that have not got to experience it one way or the other.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And also last thing I'll say, for anybody listening to this, I'll plan to release this episode right after these guys drop the video on it, so you can go watch the video of the hunt on the Untamed YouTube channel. So make sure you do that. And Josh, thanks again, buddy.
Yeah, man, I always enjoy it, dude.
Yeah, man. We'll see you. Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with your buddies. Leave us a rating, a review, and subscribe. If you want to check out more content like this, there's plenty in the links below. We truly appreciate having you guys along with us.